What is going on, everybody, and welcome to the White Belt Mentality Podcast. And in this episode, I wanted to go ahead and talk about influence, or more specifically, being an influencer in the martial arts space. Now, when we think of an influencer, especially for my younger people listening out there, we tend to think of a social media influencer, somebody that has gained a pretty big following and has a good amount of influence, that either selling a product, a service, whatever it may be that they use it for, right? Could even be entertainment, things like that. Now, it's important, even in the martial arts space, that you don't necessarily have to have a big amount of followers or a big, I guess, circle of influence in order for it to still be effective and for you to still have an influence on people. I think, whether you do this as a full time job, whether you do this as a side hustle, whether you do this as just a volunteer position because you enjoy doing it and it's a passion, if you're an instructor, a teacher, a role model, if you're a owner of a bit of that business, if you're a manager of a couple different schools, you all have a responsibility, and we all have a responsibility to make sure that we are living by the example that we set for those students, because at the end of the day, we're that massive influence for them that they could need. Now, a couple talking points that I wanted to talk about when it comes to influence in being a martial art instructor, or just being a martial artist in the atmosphere, is making sure that we're building credibility and authority, right? If we want to be having a strong influence in the space that we're currently in, we have to make sure that we are credible. So that means that we're not going to end up on McDojo. We're going to be having credible, proven techniques. We're going to be having things that actively work, right? If somebody's asking you a question, you're able to go ahead and respond to that, right? I've gone into a couple different trainings and different, events where I've asked questions because as a martial artist, I think, that quest for knowledge is really important. And so being able to ask questions and wanting to know more about it is important. And there's been times that I've had people tell me, well, I don't know, and I don't know this, right? And that's okay, right? As long as they're using that as a way of learning it later on, right? If there's something that I don't know, right, and I just kind of lie my way through it and just kind of fake it and make it seem like I know what I'm doing, and then I get proven wrong, that kills a lot of my credibility with that person, and that spreads to somebody else and somebody else, right? And then nobody wants to train with me because they don't believe what I say, right? Whereas I think the best way, if we don't know as instructors what the right answer is, we tell the student that is asking that question and be honest with them and tell them, hey, look, I don't know that answer right now, and I don't want to give you a wrong answer. Let me go ahead and find that out to you, and I'll get back to you. That at least shows that you're still being a student, you're still learning, right? We're all human, we don't know everything, but you're not going to lie to them and ruin the integrity of that instructor student relationship, if that makes sense. It also helps to build authority in that world as well, because when we have people that can trust us and they believe in us, they'll be more willing to follow us. And we know that we have the most credible, authority on things that we possibly can. So biggest thing is just be honest with everybody. Don't lie to people and try to make it seem like you know things, because then the truth will come out at some point in the future, and they'll respect your opinion of those things too, because of the fact that you're wanting to continue to improve and develop yourself and not just be stagnant and do things your way because you feel it's always the best way. You're looking to always be open minded and continue to evolve your practice in that way. The second point I wanted to talk about was creating a positive impact and inspiration. The biggest thing about influencers in the martial arts space is that they have the ability to inspire others to do this, right? The whole reason why we got into martial arts was because somebody else got us into it, right? Our friends, our parents might have pushed us into it, right? We saw an ad on TV, the newspaper, whatever it is, right? I'm old school, so I remember newspapers, but maybe it's social media nowadays, right? Um, we can go ahead and use these platforms to really show people the impact that in martial arts has made in our lives, right? I made a post yesterday talking about how when I was 8 years old, the event that I went to that had a self defense portion of it. And it's funny looking back because there's a newspaper clipping of me grabbing somebody by the wrist. And who would have thought that, so many years later, I would be having that be my full time career. So I post those things not because it makes me look good. Sure, people might like my journey, people might, enjoy my content. But at the same point, I post not because I want to get hundreds of thousands of likes, right? If I do, that's awesome. But it's ultimately to inspire people to pursue their passions, to find something that works for them and keep going with it, and just be able to look years down the line and see what you've accomplished and just see how far you've come from those humble beginnings, so to speak, right? Um, that's ultimately what I use my social media for, is always to inspire people and to show that I'm not perfect. I make mistakes. I just posted another one a couple days ago as well, talking about how I wasn't always the best instructor, how I've made plenty of mistakes and it's only made me better. But I've had the luck to be able to have the opportunity to go ahead and get better and learn and things like that. And I just want people to know that those are things that can happen to them too. And just really just be honest with everybody about some of the things that I've overcome and that I've dealt with. So that way it helps to motivate them when they encounter those things as well. Um, Last talking point I wanted to talk about was when it comes to engagement and community building, you know, I think as social media has gotten to be such a big thing, we tend to want to go ahead and just get as many, many, many people as possible, right? We want thousands of views on YouTube. We want, hundreds of thousands of views upon millions of views on TikTok, and we want thousands of likes on Instagram and all these different things. But I think what's really important is that we want to foster a loyal following, somebody of a following that is going to engage with you, that is going to grow with you, um, and you build that sense of community. So that way, when people are maybe not having the best day, they can look forward to looking at your post and it motivates them, right? If they're not feeling like going to the gym or go train at the school, right? They look at your post and they're like, man, I really am motivated to go now. That really helped get me through, right? Um, I'm lucky enough to have the following that I have, and it's a slow growth, right? It's not where I would, of course, like it to be, but I get enough engagement and I get enough people, messaging me, telling me how they get inspired by some of the things that I post and that they really look forward to and enjoy when I post. And that's ultimately the biggest thing. And, one of the things that my mentor said to me or said to a group that I was a part of was it's all about perspective, right? If I get 87 views, which is what I got on my last class that I did on YouTube, um, to a lot of people in the social media world, that's not a lot of engagement, right? But if we put it into perspective, if I had 87 people in a martial art class, that would be an amazing class. That would be a huge class. We'd have to divide it into two classes, right? So it's all about perspective. I had 87 people click on that video and watch that video, right? It's the same thing on TikTok, right? If I had 100 people watch that video, it's not technically a lot of views, but I had 100 people go ahead and choose to watch that video and engage with it, right? So I think that's important that, you know, numbers may not be where we want it to be, but when we look into perspective of if it was not social media, if it was real world activities or events, it would be amazing, right? So I think, having an influence can be a really good thing. I think making sure that we, as martial artists, and I'm definitely going to make a podcast episode on this too, living by example and just making sure that we're living the life that we're telling other people to live and do is very important. So, I think anybody can have influence. I'm gonna have the luck. I'm gonna have the ability and the luck to be able to go to a couple schools in the next couple weeks. I do have a couple schools that want to have me come to do presentations, so I'm very excited about that. I've been talking with one school, and their entire grade actually wants me to come and do a presentation. So that's over 140 students that I'll get the chance to not only meet but to engage with and really just build that influence, and I think that's a great group of people. But at the same time, you can always have a small community and it would be just as effective. So definitely build those communities. Let's grow together, guys. But make sure, guys, go ahead and follow the White Belt Mentality podcast. Make sure to go ahead and rate us. If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and like the video as well. Don't forget that every single Friday I am having my tricking class that I'm going to be posting. So you can follow along with me and do the class. If you want to do it any other day, it's always up there, guys. So you can always go ahead and follow along. Make sure to also join my Patreon. I am going to have more detailed videos on the curriculum that I am teaching in my class on YouTube, as well as you do get the opportunity to potentially do some one-on-one training with me. We can set up a meeting and all that stuff too. If you want to go ahead and collaborate with me, just make sure to hit me up at senseianthony94@gmail.com. That is my work email. So that way we can get some things going, guys. I'd love to communicate with you and work with you guys a little bit more and build that community like we were talking about. But hope you guys are having a great rest of your week, and we shall see you next time.